Hey everybody, Richard Pickett here with Moira Shepard for today's live stream interview. Moira is, I'll let her obviously get into all the details, but she's inspirational, motivational speaker, and she loves working with people to help them shed self-doubt, their fears, etc., so that they can really live the life of passion that they want to live. So let's just hop right in. And Moira, tell people who are watching, like, who's the ideal person that you could help that would be in the audience today?
I specialize in helping coaches, healers, speakers, and writers to develop the confidence they need to get their message out to a wider audience so they can make a difference and make a profit.
Oh, very cool. How many years have you been helping people? I noticed, like, when I was looking through your LinkedIn profile, it's been quite some time that you've been dedicated and focused to this.
I've been doing it this about 16 years.
Awesome. What would you say has been the easiest thing that you found when you got started? Some people are afraid of starting. How would you help them? Like, the things that you were afraid of, you actually found, hey, this is actually pretty easy.
Well, there were a couple of things that I felt really afraid of. I felt I was literally called to do this work. And I was a journalist before. I had no idea how to be a healer, a speaker, a coach, or anything like that. So I had no confidence whatever that I could do this work at all when I started out. But I believed in the calling, the voice inside that said, it's time for you to get out of bed and do what you came here to do. Because I had spent 7 years in bed with a back injury. I'd had 5 surgeries. They all failed. And the doctors had pretty much said, well, surgically, you're at the end of the road. There's nothing left to do. And it was 7 years into that experience that I woke up one morning hearing voices saying, Moira, it's time for you to get out of bed and heal the world. It's like, okay, yes, so, I will. I have no idea what to do. So I started getting training. And I spent about 3 years training because I really didn't feel worthy of doing what I felt called to do. And I know that unworthiness is at the bottom of a lot of people's fears. So what I did was I just kept my eyes on the bigger picture, serving something greater than myself. I had no confidence that I could do this, but I believed in the calling. I believed that it came from somebody who was smarter than me. And that was enough for me to be getting on with. So I followed my passion, and that would be the advice piece out of that story that I would bring forward to our dear audience, which would be follow the passion, follow what you feel called to do, and choose to trust that the way will be opened. And it opened in so many ways. When I finally got the realization together that it was time for me to start doing this professionally and charging money for it, because I'd been in many trainings and had gotten a lot of great feedback and a lot of people saying, you need to do this professionally. You need to start charging money for doing this. And finally I got to the point where, I'm here to help people. Let's just start already. Let's just start. So I began in a couple of areas. One was I was invited through a networking group to host a radio show on an internet network. And I just put together a little talk called 3 Steps to Triumph Over Trauma. So we called the show Triumph Over Trauma. And I used my journalism background to interview people about different traumas that they had overcome. I talked with people who had overcome bankruptcy, cancer, brain tumors, all kinds of hideous things, and had gotten out to the other side. So it was a very inspirational show. And I was very pleased and honored to have that platform so early on. But it wasn't, as a way to bring in clients, it wasn't that effective. I realized that I needed to start putting together a mailing list and getting the information of people who wanted to work with me more directly. And so to do that, I started putting together an email newsletter. Now, what I do could be considered pretty woo-woo. And so my idea is, okay, I don't really have the words to describe it. How can I give people an experience of the work right in an email? And I thought, well, let's just embed healing in the emails. So I programmed the emails to offer healings to people. That is, I actually had words in the email saying, would you like to know what it feels like to feel safe now? Would you like to know who you are and how to live your life believing in yourself? Would you like to know how to feel safe and worthy of success? So all people had to do was just say yes out loud or in their heart when they read the email, and the healings would come in. Nobody had ever done that before. I'd never seen energy healings by email before. But one thing I've learned in this work, and it's just gotten to be more clearly true over time for me, is if you can imagine it, you can do it. I imagined healing emails, and by golly, that's what I put out there. It was fast. It was easy. 3 questions a week, boom, boom, boom. Hang it on an inspirational quote and do healings around the topics touched on in the quote, like Martin Luther King's wonderful quote about how when you feel called to go forward, you don't always see the full flight of stairs, you just see the first step or two. Okay,
Right.
would you like to see the first step or two for you more clearly right now? Would you like to have faith that more will be revealed at the right time? Would you like to know what it feels like to move forward with faith and confidence? People would just say yes to that. And I got a widespread audience very quickly by doing that, because it was short, it was fast, it was effective, and I didn't explain what I did. I just did it and had a little message at the bottom of the email. If you'd like to experience more healings like this one-on-one, contact me at moirashepard.com, and I got a lot of clients that way. So the radio was good for visibility, and the email was very good for getting people more closely acquainted with the difference that this work can make.
Are you still doing your email list today?
It's a bit more sporadic these days, but I do get it out there. And right now I'm doing several Facebook Lives to offer people healings to get through the crisis that we're in right now, because emotional support is very, very much needed. And anything I can do in that direction, I'm happy to do.
Awesome. So for those that are watching, by the way, I will put this in the comments, but her website is moirashepard.com. So that you can connect with her and follow. I'm sure they can join your email list there as well.
Yes, there are a couple of places where they can do that.
Okay. And so you mentioned like doing the healings and things like that. What would you say is the biggest things that your clients say that you've done for them?
So many of them have said to me that they get more out of 1 hour of working with me than they have out of months or years of coaching or therapy. The intuition that I've been able to develop doing this work has helped me to get to the heart of the matter very quickly. And since I specialize in working with confidence, and I've struggled with confidence all my life myself, it's very easy for me to spot pretty much any issue having to do with confidence. Like, oh, that looks familiar. Let's let that. This is where that comes from. Let's take care of that right now, if that's okay with you. It's all permission based. I don't do any healing without a specific consent from the client, for each healing that's offered.
So you got started with maybe internet-based. Sure it's safe to say that internet-based, basically brand building and marketing, kind of when it was still a little nascent. It was just coming on. What was it like to be like feeling like you're a pioneer? Like most people had not really figured that out. You hadn't figured that out, but yet you were just launching out there and figuring out, how does this actually work?
It was out of necessity in large part, especially at the beginning, because I still wasn't that mobile. So I needed to do stuff online, because doing a lot of networking meetings or going to meetings, out of town was very difficult for me. And I knew that there was a big global audience to be tapped on the World Wide Web. But I realized very early on that the best way to get myself out there would be to go online. And so I learned how to create a website using the GoDaddy software, website builder. And it helped me to see that I've got a bit of a knack when it comes to doing things that are technical. I get as confused as anybody else, but if something is relatively user-friendly, I can pretty well figure it out. I even learned a little HTML coding.
Wow.
And that was very helpful in terms of, well, if I can't do it this way, what if I can do it this way? So I'd say even more important than technical savvy and digital brand building is persistence.
That's very true.
Just stay with it. You can learn it. You can learn if you learned how to walk and talk, you can learn how to do this. Ask anybody who's had to relearn how to walk and talk. It is hard. If you can do that, you can learn pretty much anything you want to learn in terms of digital marketing and branding.
That's very true. I'm self-taught with technology, and I think that's probably just the one key is you can learn it. That I can't tell you how many times. As a matter of fact, I can remember one particular technology that I was working with. Oh goodness, it's been about 20 years, and I was cutting edge already, and I was reading some stuff that like I just couldn't grasp it. Like it was totally foreign to me, and I just kept studying it. It took about 2 weeks, and it felt like one day I just woke up and was like, "Oh, I know how that works now," and I was able to leverage it. But that you have to break through that point of like giving up, and just keep pressing through it. And then once you get some technical momentum, things start becoming intuitive. It's like, okay, there's a sense to the way this stuff works, and then it gets a lot easier to learn.
It's true. It's almost like you learn how to learn it.
Yes.
And then things really do start getting smoother. There are always new techniques and tools and resources available for us to use, which is awesome. But it's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur because of all that's available to us in terms of technology at low or no cost.
Right. Speaking of low or no cost and the technology, right before we came on the show, you were talking about starting your own podcast, and it sounded kind of like time is of the essence. It's more, which is something I definitely work with my students and clients on, and that is I would rather have momentum than perfection. Like I want the fastest path to getting, to getting some speed. Even I'll play tricks on them, like get them to invite people to something that they haven't created yet. Because then they now have to go create that thing overnight, versus like I'll create it first and it takes months, and then they have no momentum and they feel like a failure the whole time. So tell me about your foray into doing podcasting. Where are you going with that?
Well, I went to a big podcasting event in early March in San Diego. It was all about the opportunity to pitch myself as a guest for top podcasters. And that was wonderful. And I learned a lot about how to do an effective pitch and how to position myself. But I also found the pitches of all the other people, because everybody, all the pitchers, there were 150 of us, got 2 minutes on stage to get up and talk about who we are, what we do, the value we bring to the audience. Boom, that's it. And so many of them were fascinating that I thought, oh my gosh, when I have my own show, that had not crossed my mind and for quite some time. When I have my own show, I want these people. So I gathered up all of the one sheets, all of the speaker sheets that were available for us. So now I've got 100 potential guests that I can tap into with great stories that may or may not have something to do directly with confidence, which is my main theme. But I'm looking forward to the opportunity to share the amazing stories these people shared with an audience. And it was right before everything started shutting down with the coronavirus. And I can't think of a better preparation for coming into this changed world than to be in this incredible sacred space with 200 people in a hotel room over 3 days, hearing story after story about people who've gone through incredible things: homelessness, childhood abuse, 4 kinds of cancer overcome. Man, people can survive anything. People are amazing. And to have that upfront personal awareness of, you've survived this, you've survived that, you got through this, and oh my gosh, do you have any idea how amazing you are, was a great way to feel heartened and inspired, even though I came back home to a world where there was no toilet paper to be found and there were 200 people at Trader Joe's instead of the usual 10 at the time and day that I usually went. It was a whole other world that I came back to, but just hearing all those stories of surviving and thriving really made me see that if we got through that stuff, we can certainly get through this. I know we will. I know we can. We've got it in us.
So do you have a launch date for your podcast yet?
Not an official one. I have a title. The show is called Show of Confidence with Moira Shepard.
Play on words.
Yes, exactly. And I'll be starting off with solo shows because, as we were saying, speed is part of what I'm feeling called to develop here. And it's if you've got a mouth and a microphone and a message, you can do a solo audio podcast pretty quickly. So right now I'm in the process of laying out my first 10 episodes, fine-tuning the podcast description, and figuring out which platforms I want to use for recording and editing and for distribution. And I've got several recommendations there. It's just a matter of picking one. They're all pretty much similar price points, and I've already got the artwork. So that's a wonderful thing I found. When I get the artwork for something, suddenly it feels real. I've got a visual. So it's like, oh, okay, this is really happening. Happened when I got my first business card. Oh my gosh, I really have a business. Look at this. I've got a card. It's remarkable how something tangible like that can make a business that can feel like it's mostly all in your head, make it feel like it's, more real in your life, more real on the earth.
Absolutely. So have you figured your format? Like, are you going to do video, audio only? Do you think you'll do like a live format, like going into Facebook, for example? What are your thoughts there?
Right now, I'm thinking of I will do and release the audio. I'm thinking about shooting it all in Zoom, because Zoom has this great thing where you can get the MP3, and then you get a separate recording that's just the audio, something so you can get a video audio thing and a separate audio thing right away. And so that will make it easy for me to get the audio version out quickly. It was suggested that while I'm finding my feet, that I should just concentrate on the audio, but shoot the video anyway. I can always distribute it later. I can always put it out there anyway and get more mileage out of the same content. It's a great form of repurposing.
Right. Yep. So that's not bad. That's actually a pretty good start. Another thing that I'm hearing you say that I think is very true with starting out a brand is don't try to bite off a million things at one time. Just take one little small thing. Even like in the case of like graphics being a hindrance, like some people when they go to start a Facebook group, again, this is one of the things that I'll trick them into doing, is instead of letting them go do the graphics on the Facebook group and then start to invite people, I know that'll be a 2-week, 1-month thing before they get the graphics the way they like them. I'll have them send out their invites first, and there's nothing motivating like waking up in the morning. You sent out invites yesterday, and now you got 50 people that are ready to join your Facebook group, and you've got to go get the graphics done. They get really, really excited and inspired to do it quickly then.
You really feel wanted when you see that. And that is, as you say, very inspiring and motivating.
Yeah. Also, another trap that I see, it looks like you're avoiding it, is by doing too many things at one time, they'll do an email list, a website, a Facebook group, all the social media platforms. They just end up with so many different things. They're having to make content for all the platforms. They're trying to do a podcast. They're trying to figure out, how an email schedule and what should I put in an email all the time. And it just becomes very overwhelming. So you already have some of that foundation, which is really good. And now just adding one more piece onto your business becomes very, very simple.
I had the good fortune to go to Harv Eker's Guerrilla Business School years ago in Vancouver. And that was one of my big takeaways. He said, just do one thing, get it to the point where you're on automatic pilot with it, then add another thing. And I haven't always practiced that, but I've always remembered it. And because podcasting is such a big learning curve, I'm definitely applying that here. So let's start with, I can talk about the different aspects and issues of confidence for days and days and days. I'm not worried about finding content. It's more like, okay, how do we direct this content and break it down into bite-sized pieces? Because for solo shows, I'm looking at between 5 and 15 minutes maximum playing time, a half hour for an interview show when I get to that point and I start contacting all the lovely people from the media summit I went to.
Yeah, that sounds very good. Help me understand, going back to like when you were starting, what were some of the things that you found extremely difficult, or maybe even it's like that's your Achilles heel today, the one thing that's like, man, I just like every time I try to do this one thing, like that's the hardest thing in the world. I haven't figured it out yet, or I've given up on it. Not necessarily like that you gave up and you feel like a failure in the sense, but it's like, okay, that's just not working for me. I can't do that one.
Yes. I'd say the biggest one, as I said, I'm a writer. I used to be a journalist. I've probably written at this point about 10,000 pages of material about confidence. Because I'm blessed at being very, very prolific. There's a lot to be said, and I just write it all down. And somehow with all that writing, I didn't have a book. All that writing, I did not have a book, all of that material. But when I went through a big health thing and my business just, disintegrated overnight the way it happens sometimes, and I realized that it was time to start over once again. I really thought about what I wanted to do, and what I wanted to do was to be focusing on speaking, and that included podcasting, but also workshops, not feasible right now, but down the road, and to just do more to get my message out there. And I realized that a book was the best way to do that because it automatically confers authority. I've also found in the process of writing a book that it works on you quite as much as you work on it. If you want to learn something, write a book about it. I highly recommend it. And what I finally ended up doing was hiring a book coach. And it made all the difference because it created accountability and focus. And she's very smart about marketing as well as about writing and tailoring your material to your audience and speaking to your reader in a conversational tone and breaking things down into, easily digestible bits of information so you're not overwhelming people with too much all at once. So even though I wrote a great deal of the book from scratch, working from her guideline and the template she gave me for an outline to fill in, it made me feel held somehow, having an outline of this is how a how-to book is structured. This is how the book overall is structured. This is how each chapter is structured. You want to make sure you hit each of these notes because that way you will serve the reader best. And so I felt very held in that structure. And it's like, okay, there's a beginning and a middle and an end to this. That was the sticking point, the end. I never got to the end. I could write about confidence forever. How would I know when I'm done writing the book? But when those main points are touched upon in the structure of a book, and you've got those filled in, it's like, okay, the book is done. The greatest mantra that she gave me about writing the book was, don't worry about writing the book. Just write a book.
A book, right. Yeah, I love that advice for just about anything. Like, if you wait until you are going to produce the perfect podcast in order to produce your first one, like it'll never arrive. I had so much fun doing these videos, doing lives. I think I started back in December. Maybe I did a couple in November, but I think I was really starting to do it very consistently in December. And I just made so many mistakes. My camera, for example, the biggest thing that bothered me was my camera. I had accidentally changed the hue setting, and I didn't realize I'd changed the hue setting. I thought it was the brightness auto selection or whatever, and I could adjust it, and I was either going to be red or blue, but I could never be just a consistent, white looking person. There was always a red hue or there was a blue hue. Sometimes it was worse than others. And but the thing is, you don't learn that if you're trying to get everything perfect in the beginning. You just have to get out there and start, live, doing live streams. And there's just so many things that you learn by doing it, and over time it improves. And you become better at it. So definitely writing a book instead of the book is great advice. I love that. So tell me what, I didn't see the book title when I look on your LinkedIn. Is it already completed?
Add that on there.
Is it already completed?
It's already completed. It's been launched. It's on Amazon in Kindle and paperback. And it is called Love Your Way to Success, 5 Keys to Confidence for Creative Women Entrepreneurs. I really wanted to focus on helping women develop confidence because women have confidence issues that men never have to deal with. I mean, we all have self-doubt. It's part of being a member of the human race. But I've hardly ever heard a man say, oh my God, I hate my thighs, or I don't feel worthy of charging money for this. Most men I know just do not think that way, but women do. And it comes from our history, from our family background. It comes from the culture. It comes from religion and spiritual paths. There have been so many ways that women have been discouraged from regarding themselves as full-fledged human beings with hearts and minds and souls. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love Your Way to Success.
Yeah, here's the book, and I suppose I could just go ahead and pull up. Oh, it didn't go. It jumped to the content. I was hoping to just show the title page. Let me zoom out just a little bit. Is that going to work? No. It just shortened the text, but yeah, I think the viewers get the idea. Love your way to success. Awesome.
Thank you. Well, if you
Yeah.
didn't see it in my LinkedIn profile, I guess I'd better put it on there.
Yeah, I also don't think I saw it on your website. Yeah, Meet Moira. No, I don't see it there either.
It
So,
should be under Meet Moira is Moira's book.
oh, okay. So actually, let me share also that tab then.
Yeah, thank you. That would show a better shot of the book also, so people can see it in its entirety. So yeah, you would go to Meet Moira, and then under that is
yeah, then I saw the Moira's books pop up underneath that. Okay. There we go. Very beautiful. So I'm guessing also that you had to go through the whole process of having someone else do your cover and go through choosing a good name. And did you lose any sleep, like worrying about different parts, like, oh, I like these 3 different names, which one's the best, or, you know, which cover should I use? Did you have any of those kinds of struggles?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Absolutely. I really ended up going with one that was more emotional in nature. Love your way to success. And I always wanted to have the part about confidence for creative women entrepreneurs. Initially, the subtitle was longer. It was 5 Keys to Confidence for Writers, Healers, Speakers, and other creative women entrepreneurs. But I thought, you know, I'm going to have to say that title a lot.
Right.
I need something a little more streamlined. So that's what I went to. I was also offered my choice of 6 different book design covers. And this was the last one that was submitted. It caught my eye right away. I loved the colors. I loved the dynamic flow of the design behind it, the light.
Yes.
And so that was pretty much of a no-brainer. It was all put together by my book coach's team.
Wow.
Because part of her company is a done-for-you publishing thing. So it was her team that did the proofreading, that did the uploading to Amazon, that did the Kindle formatting, the book cover design, and they just made it look beautiful. I'm really pleased with how it came out. I lost a lot of sleep over the different iterations they sent me of the interior design, because each one was an opportunity to clean up the wording, change the punctuation, bold this, italicize this, or unbold, unitalicize this. That went on for a couple, 3 months, I have to say. And then my sister pointed out to me, Moira, at some point, you're just going to have to say, this is done.
Right.
So I picked out one last paragraph that had niggling at me, and I finally figured out what was wrong with it. I changed it, and boom, that was it. It's like, okay, it's hot or cold, rain or shine, this is done.
It's like a child. You now have to send it off into the world.
Yes.
So it's very beautiful. What's the biggest takeaway? If I or someone in the audience reads this book, what's the one thing, like when they look back after a year or 2 years, what's that one thing that they're going to say, this is what that book gave me?
I think the biggest thing is the realization that you're not your mistakes. You're not your past. You're not somebody else's idea of who you are. You're under no obligation to live under somebody else's idea of who you ought to be or what you ought to do. You are perfect and whole and complete, exactly as you are. And the only thing that's wrong with you is thinking there's something wrong with you.
Yes, that there's I don't know if it's Zen or where this originally came from, but I love the quote of the only problem is thinking there is one. It's
yes.
So very true. So
yes.
very true. I'm trying to think more about the book. What else would you want people who see this interview to leave with? So we've talked about the book, which is beautiful. Your upcoming podcast, how people can reach you directly through your website, which is there in the video. What else would you want to leave people with? Like, what are some of the biggest transformational ideas or helpful ideas that bring about transformation that you've found in your work with others?
The 5 Keys to Confidence pretty much nutshells the greatest discoveries that I've made. I think one of the key discoveries that I made is that if we don't have faith in ourselves, it's not our fault. We've been taught not to believe in ourselves, where our dreams get squashed so often by well-meaning people who say, "I'm going to crush your dreams now, so nobody crushes them later." It's like, it's kind of a weird way to show love, but it's the best some people can do. What can you do? What I've realized is that we're, as multidimensional beings, confidence is a multidimensional thing too. So the 5 keys to confidence are the mental aspect of confidence, because your mind can take you faster out of the game, faster than you can say, "There's no way I can make money doing that."
Right.
It can be that quick. It's also important to honor your heart. That's the other piece of another piece of confidence, because we're emotional beings. We make decisions based on emotions and then dream up reasons to justify them. And there's so much wounding that goes on in life with our parents, with events, and it's hard when you're a child not to take things like that personally. And so there's a lot of buried trauma. There are a lot of limiting beliefs, painful beliefs that can only be released when we realize, okay, this is stuck emotional energy. This is a story I've been telling myself, and it's time for me to tell myself a new story. Somebody said this to me once, and I thought it was gospel truth. What if it's not true at all? What if I'm better than that? What if I'm better than I thought? What if I'm better than I think? There's a lot of emotional healing to be found in that. A third piece of confidence is physical confidence. And this is something I see especially with women because of the body confidence, the body image issues that so many of us have. And it can be difficult to realize that when you think something like, "Oh my God, I hate my thighs," your body experiences that as an attack. Your body has its own consciousness, its own wisdom. That's the part of you that breathes you and blinks you and beats your heart. And so when you attack it with hurtful thoughts, your body stops trusting you. And when your body doesn't trust you, it's very hard for you to trust yourself on any meaningful level. So definitely a transformational piece is to change the way you talk about yourself and the way you talk about your body. The fourth element is about honoring your spirit. There's something in us greater than ourselves. We're bigger than our bodies. We're more than our minds. There's more to us than our personalities. We have a soul, and it came here to do something. And while I may not be able to say specifically what your soul mission is, I can guarantee that it has something to do with love. You're here to show love, to teach love, to share love. It's whatever your mission is. It's something to do with love. And when you connect with that and start taking action from love rather than from fear, like, "Oh my God, I've got to make money," or "I'm going to do this, but what if nobody likes me?" These are very real concerns. But if you let them stop you, your brain, your heart, your mind, your soul are going to feel stymied and stuck. So it's essential to realize that you have more power to bring your spirit up again, however crushed it might have been by events or someone well-meaning or actively seeking to do you harm. That there's more to you than that. There's more to your life, more to your being than who you think you are. And connecting with the spirit, connecting with your mission is really critical in doing work that you find fulfilling and satisfying. Because if your soul doesn't find it satisfying, you can make all the money in the world and it will never bring you the happiness that you think money ought to. It may bring you success, but you'll never find it satisfying. That's tied in with the fifth key to confidence, which is serving something greater than yourself. And that can be your higher power of your understanding. It could be the quantum field. It could be science with a capital S. It could be creativity. It could be your higher self, but to serve something greater than yourself. When you connect your work with that, serving something greater than yourself, it infuses everything you do with meaning and significance. And that is really the foundation of creating a success that is fulfilling as well as profitable, something that fulfills your soul as well as filling up your bank account. And that's the kind of success that I'm looking to help people love their way toward. this is what we'll be exploring in my new podcast. It's called Show of Confidence with Moira Shepard, and we'll be looking at the different dimensions of confidence: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and the serving of something higher than yourself. There's so many ways that this can be played out, and I've got loads of tools and techniques and strategies to help us to get out of that slump of self-doubt, that stuckness, very quickly. And I'm excited about sharing that with people in the podcast, as I've done with people who get the book, Love Your Way to Success. They're both predicated on the same 5 principles of in your multidimensional self and your multiple levels of confidence. When you all can be aligned and in integrity in every way, on every level, with your true self, with the core of your being, which is the presence of something greater than yourself. When you connect with that and do your work from that, everything that you do will have a healing effect. It will touch the hearts and minds of all who you are in contact with. It brings meaning to every day of your life. It brings joy to every day in your life. Because if one person breathes easier because of something that you said or did, doesn't that make it all worthwhile?
Yes, I was just in helping someone else who is grieving right now. Earlier today, writing to them, their brother-in-law had passed away. And because of the coronavirus, this woman's husband has the virus. She can't go visit her brother-in-law's family and help them because she's afraid she may just be carrying the coronavirus and then cause it to spread. And so it's almost like double and triple the pain of the loss, on top of the fact that her brother-in-law was such a beautiful person. And you touched on so many different things that are kind of related to that. Like one of them specifically that came to me is meaning. Events in and of themselves are meaningless, but we're the ones that bring meaning to them.
Yes.
And maybe something bad happens. That's a judgment that I'm putting on that I didn't want that to happen. It's negative, but I'm the one now that brings meaning to that, and how I respond to it and how I use that event now in my life is the most important. I love how you talked about connecting, honoring your spirit, in that it will always have something to do with love. I think that's very, very true. As a coach, every time I go drill down with someone to find out what's their real why behind what they're doing, and find that mission and the purpose that's not necessarily related to, well, I just want to make money, or I want to have a big company, or those things, but the personal things, it always comes down to some form of helping other people, which to me, I believe, is an expression of love. When we offer ourself for someone else for their own benefit, it's a work of love. Even if it is in a business, it doesn't necessarily have to be just a monetary, transaction. So a lot of the things that you say really resonate with me quite a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Another question comes to mind. So I heard you mention earlier, that women have certain problems that with confidence that men don't have. What are some of the problems? And maybe you could just say, well, I've never really looked into the men. I just paid more attention to women. That's fine. But do you have certain things that, like, men always have these types of confidence problems? Or maybe it's not confidence, it's some other area.
I do have a number of men clients, which never ceases to amaze me, because so much of my conversation is with and toward women, but they're all long-term clients, and I really appreciate them. And what they come for is to feel like they're on track, to feel like that they are evolving, because they're all very evolved men, to feel like they're evolving in the direction that they want to go in. They do have doubts, they do have fears, and I've often been surprised at how deeply men are wounded when a relationship ends, and how much they call into question their worth, their worthiness, their goodness, their manliness. And if I were just more this and less that, would things have gone differently? And that's something that I'm able to help them with, because it's important to recognize that the people we attract are often very much like ourselves. We're very much equal matches in terms of willingness to be intimate, willingness to be open and vulnerable, willingness to commit. So even though I've seen a lot of women say, he just wasn't ready to commit. If they look at it honestly, they will say, well, I wasn't any more ready to commit than he was. So I'm able to bring that feminine perspective to them and help them to see that it wasn't just you in there. This did take two people. And it's so tempting when you come to the end of a relationship to just shrug your shoulders, give up, and say, I'm just no good at relationships, when in fact it may be something more along the lines of, you're just no good at relationships with people who are wrong for you.
Right.
And that's a good thing. If you were able to be successfully in a relationship with someone who is really not a good match for you, who makes you feel terrible about yourself, who takes your money and makes you write bad checks, really, is that a long-term relationship that you want to be part of? But it's so tempting, and I think this is something I see in everybody, is to believe that every time we connect with someone, this is our last chance at love. And if this goes wrong, there'll never be a chance for love again. And I'm happy to report that that is never, ever true.
Right.
There is always another chance for love with someone who can really appreciate you, someone who can really value you for who you are, who would never want you to change a thing about yourself, who thinks you're terrific just as you are. That's when that's when it becomes very easy to be in a relationship with someone, because you don't have to bend yourself into a pretzel to try to please them or to be the way you think they want you to be.
Yeah, I think
That's
that
where confidence is so key.
I think that we as creatures looking for the familiar find it more comfortable to be with the problem that I know than maybe the health and the joy relationship that is totally unknown. So I think if there are so many different people out there, so why do I keep finding myself attracted to the same type every time? It's not the people, like, because there's so much variety. So it's not the marketplace, it's not the variety that's out there that is the problem here. It's something that I'm constantly seeking out or attracted to, the ones that will constantly cause the same problems.
Yes.
And it's very subconscious. I think you hit a very big truth that I don't think I appreciated as much until probably the last couple years. You hit this truth earlier, and that is that we make emotional decisions and then we rationalize them afterwards. It's so true. I think the subconscious is really the thing running the show.
Mm-hmm.
Brain mass wise, only 4% of our brain mass is the conscious mind. The other 96%, that's running the show. All the way
Yes.
from taking what I see and hear and filtering it and coloring it and then presenting it in a certain way to the conscious mind that makes me believe that narrative that's subconscious is actually what's really going on, and it probably mostly is not. So then trying to understand, like, why is the subconscious or emotional based decisions, however someone would want to phrase it, always going in this one particular direction? There's something here.
Well, you touched on the answer earlier when you said that the brain gravitates toward the familiar.
Yes.
And very often, unconsciously, pretty much entirely unconsciously, we tend to gravitate people who are like our mother or like our father. In an effort to heal that early childhood relationship, we try to get it right again. And so it's not usually so much the mother or the father and whether you are a man or a woman. It's whether you're a man or a woman, who is the more dominant figure in your life, the more dominant parent in your life. And usually that's the one that you found hardest to please, because you took the love of the other one for granted. So you're always working, trying, hoping, praying, urging yourself on toward doing something that would make mama smile or that would make daddy proud. And so that is a pattern of love withheld. And if withholding love was what passed for love in your house, you will gravitate toward people who tend to withhold love also, because that's what feels like home. That is what feels familiar to you, trying to please an unpleasable person.
Very true. And I think when we see maybe not this exact pattern, but whatever that our pattern is, when we see that pattern play out after a couple of times, and we wise up to it, I found the best thing I can say in myself, and something that I was even just sharing with someone over this weekend, because I saw a similar pattern in their life, and I was sharing this. I think the best conclusion you can reach is that's just not a problem I can help solve. Like, because like, even if you're the rescuer and it's like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to step into this tragedy and help this thing, help this person develop. I'm going to develop, eventually you have to just come to a place where it's like, that's just not a problem I can solve. And I'm sure this person or these types of situations can be improved, can be helped, but it's just not me. Like, that's obviously not the thing I'm called to do in my life. There's places where I can have much more success in relationships, even intimate ones, where I'm not trying to solve for me a problem which I'm not equipped, or may never be equipped to solve or handle. And just accept it. And so be willing to now what is it that I'm really looking for in life? What type of relationship would really be healthy for me? What do I really need? Yeah. And it's unknown and it's scary.
Yes. Well, we're all plunged into the unknown every day. And that's something that we lose track of when we start feeling like, oh my gosh, we're in times of uncertainty and chaos. I have no idea where to go, what to do, what's next. Yikes. Yeah, fear of the future, fear of the unknown is a very real thing. But what we lose sight of is the fact that we have navigated the unknown every day of our lives.
Right.
Every morning you've waked up and you've thought, this is what's going to happen today. And sometimes you've been right. And sometimes you got surprised. But whatever way it played out, you are still here, which means that you've gone bravely into the unknown, or with fear and trembling into the unknown, and gotten out to the other side. There's so much unnecessary fear attached to the unknown. And it makes me glad that we have more awareness now of principles like the law of attraction, where more and more people are becoming aware of what you focus on expands, and you need to focus on, keep your focus on what you want and keep it away from what you do not want. Because if you're anticipating, more chaos and uncertainty, you will surely draw that to you. Welcome to the dark side of a law of attraction. But if you keep your eye on, this is what I'm going to be doing, this is what I'm going to be working toward, this is the prize that I'm going to keep my eyes on, and keep your focus on that, it helps you to navigate the unknown. Because when you're in the unknown, you're essentially in the primordial soup of possibility. You're in the realm of infinite possibilities. It could go in any direction. And that includes the direction that you want. Out of all that menu of infinite possibilities, even bigger than the Cheesecake Factory's menu, is the menu of infinite possibilities. And what you want, whatever it is always on the menu, because the possibilities are infinite. So you can go toward that. So if you want that business success, what are things that you can do today to create that? In the midst of a lot of uncertainty, a lot of people are frightened about money. They're frightened about committing to a program, possibly even yours, even if it's, the most wonderful thing you can possibly devise. So that all that tells you is that you need to take your customers on a longer customer journey. You need to give them many more opportunities to get to know you, to like you, to trust you, which means showing up now, being more visible now, offering what help you can extend now, laying the foundation for the future that you want to create.
Yeah, in the case, like, I think of your podcast is excellent, because you're really, instead of focusing on making a sale, finding the next client, or making people into customers, it's the focus on, I'm going to build an audience that I can serve, and my focus will just be on them. As they come through this period of time, they will naturally turn into clients and customers all on their own. But our focus isn't on a customer, it's on serving the needs in this marketplace. I think that's I think we're in a crisis, so it kind of makes us have to do that. But I think this is how business should have been from the beginning anyway. Is instead of like, how can I make it? I was saying that this weekend, no one wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh, I want to become a customer today." Like, whose customer can I become? Like, they always wake up and they say, "I have this problem. How can I solve this problem?" And so, as a business owner, I shouldn't be looking for clients and customers. I should be looking to solve problems, and then we'll connect very easily.
So the part of the customer journey that's really got me occupied right now is the podcast. I mentioned earlier that I've been doing some live Facebook videos and doing more blog posts and sending more information to my readers about confidence and how they can have more faith in themselves and in the future. But what I really came to realize the other day is that, yes, I absolutely can help the people watching on Facebook. I absolutely can help the people on my mailing list, the folks who follow my blog. But as in a podcast, I can reach so many more people. I can help more people, which is why I'm gathering all of my energies and focus right now on putting together the podcast, because that is going to reach the greatest number of people. I can do the best service from there. And I read this wonderful quote the other day. I don't quite remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of, we don't have obstacles to our success. We have clearer paths to lesser goals. And that distracts us. And so I recognized in myself that I had been distracting myself from my goal of podcasting by doing something that was immediate, that was familiar, that I already knew how to do, but to serve the greater good in greater numbers. Podcasting is the way for me to go right now. There are a lot of shows out there. I know my show will find its audience or not, but when I feel so strongly called to do something, I found it absolutely pays to follow that, because however the podcast goes, whether it flies, whether it flops, I'm going to learn a lot from doing it. And that is never wasted. And it will have done somebody some good somewhere along the way. And that's really what I'm here for. Oh, I'm sorry. I just lost your sound. Not hearing you. So I don't know if the listeners can hear me. I don't know if it's your sound or my sound. You can hear me? Okay. So while we've got this airspace, let's see what else I can offer. I began talking about my book by saying that it's never your fault that you lack confidence. And one of the biggest reasons for that is that your brain really hates the idea of confidence. Your brain thinks confidence is a terrible idea from an evolutionary standpoint. And the reason for that is that your brain thinks that if you start getting a little too cocky, you start believing in yourself a little too much, you're going to do something crazy and you're going to die. So to save you from dying, your brain is going to, excellent. To save you from dying, your brain is going to assure you that it's never going to work out. Don't take a chance. The unknown is terrible. Don't go there. All of which undercuts your confidence in yourself and your ability to take action and walk toward a future that, looks bright. So it's an evolutionary thing. That's one of the reasons why lack of confidence is not your fault. It's because your brain wants to keep you from dying. So the thing to learn there is to show your brain and to open yourself to realizing other ways that your brain can keep you safe, besides by shooting down your confidence. Like if your brain wants you to be successful, if your brain wants you to be wealthy, most importantly, if your brain wants to be safe, does it make sense that it would be safer if you felt more confident in taking actions that will bring profit, that will make a difference in other people's lives, And maybe your brain should support you in that, because that's a great way to be safe, is to do your work and love doing it. What could be safer than that?
That's really good. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I don't know why a Chrome browser, every once in a while, it locks up on the sound, and I have to kill it and close the session, and then I can come back in and it works fine. I have no idea why. Yeah, I love what you were just saying there about why not go ahead and choose the confidence route. Another one that I work with people on is loving the fearful part of you and realize, just like you said, it's not wanting you to die. It's a safety mechanism. So loving that and saying, I really appreciate that you're just trying to help me out. And that may have helped in the past when I was young, when I was little, when I was in some, difficult situation, or when we were predecessors living in, the jungle, you would have saved me from being eaten by a lion, but you're just not necessary right now. Like, I appreciate your input, but it's not helping me. I really need to pay more attention to something else and move away from that. So loving the fearful part of us. And instead of saying, I'm afraid, I identify more with, no, I'm the successful mindset. And I see that this fear is operating inside of me. But that's almost in a way maybe dividing, which I want to be careful. I don't want people to begin to fracture themselves and become a divided self, but realizing that fear is just a component within me. And it's not, all of me is not afraid. All of me is not given to fear.
That's a great realization. It's like it's one facet in the diamond of your consciousness.
Yes.
It's not the whole diamond.
But it can be if I focus on it too much. If I take a penny, I can block my entire vision of my whole room.
Yes.
So I can take any kind of little fear and overwhelm myself by the same mechanism. Well, this has been beautiful. Oh, the thing that I was saying about, well, now it just slipped my mind again. I was saying when we got cut off. Wow. Well, maybe it's not that important. And going back to the learning. Oh, this is exactly what it was. Going back to the learning experience that you were saying, that no matter what happens with your podcast, you're going to learn from it. I think that's the most beautiful view of everything that we do in business. Instead of saying I'm either going to succeed or fail, then it either works or I'm a failure or like whatever. It's like this, zero sum game. It's like, it's a binary, it's either true or false. And if it's false, I'm bad, or this is bad, or whatever. But instead saying, I'm going to try this thing out. It's going to be a business experiment, and I'm going to see if I can make this work and see what things will work with it. And I will make decisions as I go and maybe pivot and change as I go until I arrive at something that does work. And that does have the success. And so learning becomes the success. Did I learn something? Yes. Okay, then I've had success. It's like whether it gave me money or not, is not the deciding factor on success. So having that learning mindset and everything is just going to be an experiment until I figure out what really works the best in this market, I think is a beautiful, beautiful attitude.
Thank you. It's served me well. That's rooted in a wonderful quote from Jim Rohn that I heard years ago, which was something along the great business philosopher, which was something along the lines of, don't do anything for the result or what it will bring you. Do it for who you become as you do it.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Yeah. Yes. And there are two viewpoints, two other things that reminds me of. One is that I spend the rest of my life with me. So what I do and how I approach it is I want that guy to be someone I would enjoy spending the rest of my life with. So whatever I'm doing, who am I? And how, can I live with this guy? The other one is focusing more on the process than the outcome. We do need to measure the outcome, but how are we doing things is more important than the what thing that I'm actually doing. And they saw, I think it was the archers that would go to the Olympics for about a 15, 20-year span, the ones from Asia were just like totally dominating. And it turns out that here in the West, they would, pick up their arrow, put it in the bow, draw it back, and, see if they got the bullseye. Whereas in the East, they would focus on, how do I pick up my arrow? How am I putting my arrow in the bow? How do I stretch the bow back? How do I breathe? How do I release? And then they would look and figure out, now I just need to adjust my process. We were more concentrated on hitting the bullseye, and they were more focused on how am I doing this entire process. And some of their teachers came here, and then our game began to improve. But I think how we do things is probably much more important than the what thing it is that we're actually doing.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, so we are at an hour. It's been amazing. It's been a beautiful time that we've spent together. I really appreciate you coming on the show. And again, I will post out your links in the comments on every place where this is being shared, so that people can connect with you. And if you'd like, I can close the broadcast and we can keep chatting afterwards, just to stay in the studio.
Sure.
Alrighty. Thanks everyone. Thank you,
so
Moira, for coming. All right. Bye-bye.